Who do you say Jesus is? It is an important question. For me, I say that Jesus is God made man, fully God, fully human. That Jesus shows us more clearly who God is and enables us to know that God understands what it is like to be us. Through Jesus, we learn the self-giving way that God calls us to live. And Jesus himself lived that out as he went to his death on the cross. I believe that Jesus has the power through his death and resurrection to get rid of all that separates us from the love of God and to bring us to new life lived with him. What do you believe? Whatever your answer to that question is, it has consequences, as it did for Simon. It makes a difference to who we are and what we do. We know Simon better as Peter, which is the name that Jesus gave him. You will be aware of the link between Petros, the Greek version of Peter, and Petra, Greek for rock. In Aramaic, the link is also clear, Kephas and Kephar. Peter, the rock on which God builds his church, or more specifically, Peter, who has just confessed his belief in Jesus as the Christ, the Son of the living God, the rock on which God builds his church. Once we recognise and acknowledge Jesus as the Holy One sent by God, who is more than just a good man or a good teacher, Jesus who is the Son of God, God made man, then it makes a difference. It gives us purpose and a place in the mission of God. This conversation about who Jesus is given by each of Matthew, Mark and Luke in their Gospels, but only Matthew includes the bit about the establishment of the church. We can look at it from both directions. We can go from God to the church and say that according to Matthew, God, through Jesus, intended to plant the church, and this is why Jesus called the disciples to continue the work he had started. The church did not just spring up because the disciples were bored and wanted something to do after Jesus had gone. The church is actually part of what God intended in the first place. That's worth thinking about. Isn't it great to be part of what God has planned? Do we think that the church we are part of is what God intended it to become? We could go further and start asking, so if God intended the church, then why? And are we fulfilling God's purposes in the way that we are? Or we can start looking at it from the other direction, beginning with the church and going back to its origins in God. This conversation between Jesus and his followers reminds us of the solid foundation on which the church is built. The foundation of our God-focused community is a declaration of faith about who Jesus is. That firm belief is a strong foundation which can and should hold up all that we do. The faith which we accept into our lives when we answer the question, who do you say that Jesus is, with the words, he is the Christ, the Saviour, the Son of the living God. That's the same faith which those who went before us held. And it is the faith we are called to pass on to those who will follow after us, so that together as the church through time and around the world, we may continue to allow God to work through us by his Spirit in whatever way he leads us. All sorts of things can go on in the church as long as they are true to that foundational belief. As God is active by his Spirit, there are amazing possibilities which we could get involved with. And as we remain built on the solid foundation of our faith in Jesus, it actually gives us the security, the strength and the freedom to allow God to work more fully in us and through us. In the pictures which follow alongside the prayers, there is one of a large rock which is on the coastline near Pittenweem in Fife. Just before that photo was taken, the rock was covered in children clambering all over it, having a whale of a time, shouting with excitement. Wouldn't that be a great picture for the church, built on the solid foundation of faith in Jesus, but full of people rejoicing and making their voices heard in such a delightful way.